dinorocket5. Anyways, let's get into it. Chapter 2. A, the Chapter 2. A night of work. There we go. Anyway. It was a Monday, so Izuku left the cafe at 2 p.m. and headed back home. He really wished he was old enough to ride his motorcycle that he had found and fixed up a few months ago. But apparently a 12-year-old kid can't get a license for one, even though he can pass the test easily, he sometimes rides it at night when he wants to patrol a further away district, or when he has a holiday off of work and can ride it in the morning. But even then, he has to be careful not to get pulled over and questioned. It wasn't too far of a walk home from work, so he didn't mind, but his cabin was hidden just inside of a nearby forest, and he couldn't make a trail leading to his home, which meant a walk through the grass. Usually it was solid, but rainy season could get muddy, and cleaning his shoes every time he got home or out of the forest was not fun. Izuku opened his door and made a beeline to his bedroom. He didn't even sleep for 2 days and was starting to feel it despite the coffee in his system, fighting it off. Even the holy liquid had its limits. Apparently, sighing, he closed his eyes after making sure his alarm was set, and he fell into a dreamless sleep. Beep, beep, beep. Izuku quickly turned off his alarm and pulled himself up, stretching a few satisfying pops in his back. Later, and he was ready for his night to begin. It was 8 p.m. and Izuku could go out as Rabbit. Yet he was too early. Instead, he spent the time either hacking or working on his support gear. His gear was doing fine, so hacking it was. There were a ton of corrupt companies and criminal activity for him to look into. He sometimes dealt with some smaller cases himself as Rabbit, but large groups and companies require the police and more personnel before he knew it. The clock read that it was just past 10 p.m. and Izuku could head off for his morning stroll. In those 2 hours, he had gathered enough evidence to bring down a medium insurance company, as well as some analysts of several criminals or villains that had shown up recently. Izuku quickly copied everything to a cheap flash drive and got geared up. His costume was complex and completely made by himself, which made he secretly proud every time he put it on. He wore thick dark gray leggings with straps on his thighs for some knives and his rubber bullet gun. For shoes, he had long black socks that went over his knees, connecting to the cavalier sewn into his leggings at the knees. Over that, he had sturdy and modified combat boots, where he had added a lot of shock absorption to the bottom and hidden a knife that would poke out of the front and back with 2 taps of a bottom on his gloves. His his top consisted of a thin black athletic turtleneck worn under a dark faded red t-shirt that had a small logo of R drawn on it by Izuku, his vigilante logo, with holsters and straps on his arms and shoulders, as well as a utility belt on his waist for flash bombs, first aid, and the thick black the thick black gloves bent halfway up his forearm, his index and middle finger uncovered, while the other 3 are fully covered in heavy material. On top of all that was a dark green black jacket with a unique bunny-eared hood. They didn't stand up, but rather flopped to the side of his head. He had sewn them on himself. His mask was his favorite part to make. It consisted of 2 main elements. The first piece was a simple black mask that went over his nose and mouth. It had a built-in gas filter, as well as a small voice distorter. The mask is just black, with a small bunny nose printed on it. His other piece was a red tinted visor that attached to his hood, so that neither could be taken off easily, especially not in a fight or chase. It required a small pattern type of password to remove. He had recently upgraded his visor, which now allowed him to scroll through information and click a switch connected to the mask over his mouth, so he could mumble notes that were recorded for later without anyone on the outside hearing him. He had a few weapons, his main one being a bow staff that can split into 2 pieces. He wears it on his back in 2 separate pieces and usually fights with the one in both hands, separately depending on the opponent. He also used knives and a gun with rubber bullets. The knives were originally for insurance, so that he could still fight if he lost his bow staff, or if he ended up cornered, as well as to cut rope or other materials in general. The gun was for the similar use that if he couldn't get in close for the fight, or if they tried to run, he could hit the opponent from a distance. He mainly used flash and smoke bombs in large fights or when he needs to regroup. Glitter bombs are reserved for the police and heroes unless he finds himself in trouble with no other choice, but that only happened once. Villains and criminals didn't observe his precious glitter. Izuku checked himself over once more before grabbing the flash drive of information and heading out for the night. He headed to the police station and slipped into the one and only Detective Sakachi's office. It was empty, so Izuku placed it down on his desk with a sticky note attached to it. With his signature, satisfied Rabbit set out to stop some crime. Kid, I need you to answer me. Why? What was that? I didn't cry. I didn't care. Kid? Ezekiel was normally able to keep himself out of his thoughts, but after seeing Eraserhead, the other morning memories began to resurface involuntarily. The night Eraser saved Ezekiel wasn't when he was too keen on remembering. With a sigh, he laid his back on the rooftop, legs swinging over the edge of the 15-story building. Was it dangerous? Yes. Did he care? Not really. Being up high was strangely relaxing, and Ezekiel could easily look down at the city below. But tonight he just wasn't in the right mind, and that could be dangerous, both for him and anyone he was trying to save. Mainly for himself. He had already fought off several criminals coming out with way too many wounds. For the level of his opponents, sure, he defeated and captured them, but he wasn't as careful or aware as usual, and that would end up with him gravely injured. There we go. Just an hour ago, he had let a guy shallowly stab him in the leg, just because he didn't feel like fighting him any longer. In fact, he moved towards the knife just to knock the guy out quicker, even though he could have easily done so with a few extra moves. Luckily, no stitches were needed. It was somewhat dull and a sharp blade. Plus, the guy wasn't actually expecting to land a hit, so he had dropped the handle immediately. Sighing once more, he checked the time, 2:30. He decided to head home and shower before he went to work at the cafe. Maybe Eraser will come back today as well, he thought, even though he hated the memories that came with the pro hero himself. Himself was the man Izuku trusted and looked up to. A true hero, unlike some golden bitch and flaming trash can. The flaming trash can doesn't most likely fit Endeavor there. That is the best. Anyways, Izuku was not disappointed. The underground hero came in soon after opening, asking for his coffee and another muffin. With a bright smile, Izuku served the hero, who gave a grateful look. While it may be done to get along with a pro, especially when he would run into as Rabbit, Izuku couldn't help it. Eraser didn't recognize him after all these years, but that was fine with Izuku. He could simply pay back the man's kindness with loads of coffee and unexpectedly pastries. Anyways, hope you guys did enjoy chapter 2 of this, and I plan on recording chapter 3 maybe tomorrow as well. But for now, this is chapter 2 has already been pre-recorded, so hope you guys did enjoy this one, and yeah, bye.